What's up, football fans? Welcome to my mock draft. It's my pleasure to bring this video to you. This is the result of hours of watching film and breaking down players, so I'm really excited to get all of your reactions to what I've been working on. Just a few notes before we do get started here. You'll see each player has 3 ratings, so they get an instant grade, which is basically their Madden rating, how good I think they'll be right away, a potential grade, which is primarily based on their physical attributes, how good I think they could be, and then an overall grade, which is a combination of the two with more emphasis on that instant rating. For the Madden players out there, you can get my prospects roster under TFG prospects on the Xbox One file share. Also, I'm going to upload a file of this mock draft under TFG mock. And then, of course, my flagship file 2017 Real will have all the rookies as soon as the draft happens. Keep in mind, Madden's interface for editing players and creating players is miserable. They only let me make so many players, and after a point, I have to edit existing players in which I can't change their birthday, their height, weight, face, or skin tone. So this really makes it impossible to have complete accuracy. So if you notice something off, just do keep that in mind. And then lastly, about this mock draft, you'll notice it's a little different than the ones you'll see out there. In that I, for the most part, made each pick as if I was the GM of each team. I did this to eliminate bias and to really show how I feel about these guys in terms of their grades. So without further ado, let's jump in and get this thing going. So with the first pick in the NFL draft, no surprise here, the Cleveland Browns selecting Myles Garrett. Slam dunk pick, should be the primary pass rusher foundation of this defense for the next 10 years or so. Just an absolute physical freak and should really help this defense grow around, honestly, some good pieces that they have added over the last couple of years. And with the second pick in the draft, we actually have our first trade. It's the Cleveland Browns moving up to take Mitchell Trubisky. Now, Trubisky isn't my favorite quarterback in this class, but I will admit he has the highest upside out of anyone in this class. I think the Browns honestly have the foundation for a young quarterback to come in and succeed, so why not get your guy, get the guy with the highest upside? And the other reason I like this move is the Browns, with the addition of Myles Garrett, could actually be decent next year. You know, not a championship team, but pretty good. And if they get too good, they could find themselves in quarterback limbo like a Cincinnati or a Kansas City, where they get stuck and they can't get their guy. So with the assets that they have, why not try and get your guy in Mitchell Trubisky? And with the third pick and the first quarterback off the board, we have the Chicago Bears taking Solomon Thomas. This is going to be a total value pick. I have Solomon Thomas as the second best player in this draft, actually not too far behind Myles Garrett. He seems like an Aaron Donald type prospect to me. And you put him in this front seven, even though it's not a big need for the Bears, it's actually their biggest strength. But sometimes you got to build around that strength, and Solomon Thomas could make this honestly one of the best front sevens in football next year. And at pick number 4, we have another trade, and it's the Cincinnati Bengals moving up to select Leonard Fournette. If I'm the Bengals, I make this move because they need a running game to help this offense succeed, especially with the departure of the guys in their offensive line. They could address the running game via the offensive line, but this class is incredibly weak, so why not get a guy that is always going to fight for those extra yards and a total top-notch running back prospect? And then for the Jags, I moved down because they're in a good position to load up on some picks and still get some really good value at pick number 9, which is what they'll acquire in this trade. And pick number 5, this was a little easier for me. The Titans taking Marshawn Lattimore, corner out of Ohio State, the top corner in this draft pretty clearly. A position of need and a very good value here. He'll plug right in and be a very solid pick for a young team with a lot of picks and a lot of upside. So I really like this pick here. And at pick number 6, we have another trade. It's the New Orleans Saints moving up to select O.J. Howard. Now the Jets, they should make this deal because the quarterbacks here are not worth the pick, and they should probably give Christian Hackenberg a chance and take a run at a good quarterback class next year. The Saints, they need to win now. Drew Brees is getting older and older, and O.J. Howard is an absolute can't-miss tight end in my opinion. Such a freak. he has even more upside than a guy like Jimmy Graham because he will come in and block. So I think this is a slam dunk move for the Saints. They also have another pick later in the draft to address their defense, but this will make their offense borderline unstoppable. And at pick number 7, the Los Angeles Chargers will be more than happy to select Malik Hooker of excellent value at pick number 7 and a total need. I do like Jamal Adams slightly more as a prospect, but Malik Hooker going to provide better coverage for this team than Adams, and it's a huge need for the Chargers, that safety position. So really a great pick here for the Chargers to get Malik Hooker at 7. And pick number 8, this is my favorite pick in the entire draft, and it's the Panthers staying put but landing John Ross, the absolute burner, deep threat, and more out of Washington. He will replace Ted Ginn and more because he is a legit receiver. He's my favorite receiver in this class, and the Panthers is the absolute best fit for John Ross because of Cam Newton and the way that this offense runs. They like to set up that deep ball and absolutely take chances. John Ross could be an honest monster in Carolina. And at pick number 9, where the Jags traded down to, we have them getting Jamal Adams, which would be a thriller for Jags fans. This would be a guy that they might target at 4. So if they trade down, load up on picks, and then get Jamal Adams at a position of need, a top prospect, that would be an awesome pick for the Jags, and yet another reason to be optimistic about this team going forward. And at pick number 10, we have another trade. It's the Arizona Cardinals moving up to select Deshaun Watson. They make this move because they get ahead of a couple quarterback needy teams like the Bills and the Jets. They get a guy that can sit for a year behind Carson Palmer. He might need that coming out of a system at Clemson where he had a lot of first read throws. But I really like Deshaun Watson. I think he has a ton of upside and that true franchise quarterback mentality. So this could be a home run pick for the Cardinals, although it might not come into play until next season. And at pick number 11, where the Jets traded down to, you may have noticed that Jonathan Allen is still available. Would have been a great pick for the Jets, but that's the one position that they don't need. So someone might be looking to move up into this spot. Just a few picks later, the Colts are sitting, and Jonathan Allen would be a tremendous fit and a huge need. So sure enough, the Colts trade up and select Jonathan Allen. The Jets collect even more picks and will be really loaded to restack that roster with some youth moving forward. And for the Colts, this is a total home run pick. I have him falling slightly because his upside is a little lower. His athleticism is a question, but one of the most polished players coming out and a team that needs instant impact defensive players. This would be a no-brainer for the Colts to move up. And pick number 12, where the 49ers find themselves after trading with Cleveland. Moving to a 4-3 scheme now, they select Derek Barnett. He will complement this D-line very well. And I love Derek Burnett. He might be the most polished player in this class. He sets up linemen so well, so efficient at getting sacks. His athleticism is going to limit him at times, but this guy really reminds me of like an Everson Griffin. And I honestly think there's a super high chance that Derek Burnett's going to be an effective player at the next level. And for the 49ers to get a guy like this moving into a new scheme, he will fit right into that 4-3 and will be a great foundational player for their defense. And pick number 13, the Buffalo Bills are going to select Reuben Foster to replace Zach Brown, who left in free agency. They went with another Alabama linebacker last season in Reggie Ragland. Didn't pan out for injuries. He might still play, but this is a huge position of need. And Reuben Foster, one of those honestly can't miss prospects. At the worst, he's going to be a starting caliber linebacker with crazy instincts. You do question his athleticism a little bit. He only ran a 4.72, but I still think this is a great pick for the Bills here at 13. And at pick 14, the Eagles acquiring this pick from the Vikings. We're going to have the Eagles going with a corner, Marlon Humphrey out of Alabama. There's a ton of good corners in this class. I think Humphrey's a good fit for the Eagles because he's a combination of high upside and instant impact. This defense could be really dominant next year, so why not take a slightly riskier prospect, hoping that your scheme's going to help this guy develop. Humphrey just flies around, makes big plays left and right. I think this is a great pick for the Eagles. And at pick 15, the Jets are going to make their first pick in the draft, and it's one of my favorite players from this class. It is Carl Lawson, the outside linebacker slash edge player out of Auburn. This is probably the biggest need for the Jets, is that edge rush position. Their scheme has been kind of a mess, but this would be a plug and play guy, a total freak athlete that's going to be able to grow with a team looking to get young. So a high upside pick for the Jets here at 15. And at 16, we've got the Ravens landing Corey Davis. This is a great pick, a huge need at receiver for the Ravens, and also a very valuable pick. I love Corey Davis out of Western Michigan. Big physical receiver, ton of upside with his athleticism. So a great pick here for the Ravens at 16. And on to pick number 17, the Washington Redskins selecting Dalvin Cook, second running back off the board. Should fit right into this scheme. He's kind of a do-it-all running back, a ton of upside, great athleticism, some power, but a lot of elusiveness. So going to plug right in as the starter for the Redskins here at the 17th pick. And at pick number 18, the Tennessee Titans, with their second selection in the draft after getting Lattimore at 5, they're going to go with Mike Williams here, wide receiver out of Clemson. I have my own questions about Williams. I don't know if he's going to be able to create separation at the next level, but he does have that ability to high point the ball. He's going to be an excellent fit for the Titans and a safety blanket for Marcus Mariota. This would be an excellent second pick for the Titans. And at pick 19, I've seen this in a lot of mocks recently, but the Tampa Bay Bucks selecting Oli Melifonwu, the safety out of UConn. This is maybe the biggest need for the Bucks, is that safety position. And Melifonwu, almost a luxury pick at this point. He has a ton of upside. He's going to come in and play physical and make tackles, but he's pretty raw. So the Bucks are going to have to develop him, but they kind of lack some superstars on that defense if they want to take that next step, because they do have some great pieces in there. Melifonwu could be an enforcer at the next level. And at pick number 20 here, we have the Denver Broncos taking the first offensive lineman off the board in Cam Robinson. The highest upside of any lineman in this draft, definitely going to have some work to do. This is a terrible class for linemen. That's why this might be considered a bit of a reach talent-wise. But we saw in free agency the demand for these linemen, and the Broncos are in a great spot. They're one of the first teams that desperately needs linemen that is picking. So unless someone trades ahead of them, they should have their pick at tackle, and I think Cam Robinson is the guy to go with. And at pick number 21, I have the Detroit Lions selecting Hassan Reddick, the linebacker out of Temple. I categorize him as a Tampa 2 linebacker. He's going to really transition. He was a 3-4 outside, but he projects best as an outside linebacker in the Lions 4-3 scheme. He's going to be great in coverage. He will be able to have some pass rush ability, but a lot of upside because of his athleticism. He had a great combine and is catching a lot of eyes. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Ryan Shazier as he climbed in the draft a few years ago. And at pick number 22, the Miami Dolphins will select Chidobe Awuzie. Hope I said that right. But I love Awuzie's game. Honestly, maybe my favorite player in the first round. Just a really exciting corner, really smart guy. And I think he's going to be just kind of a lock at corner. Maybe not the highest upside out of corners in this draft, but pretty athletic. He ran, I think, a 4.43 and just a playmaker. So I think this will be a steal for the Dolphins at 22. And moving on to pick number 23, we have the Giants going with Malik McDowell, defensive tackle out of Michigan State. He's going to fall in the draft, it seems. He's really a dominant player on film, sheds blocks with ease, and has some pass rush to him, but there's questions about his motor, which seems to be dropping him in the draft. This would be an excellent landing spot for the Giants. He will plug right in where Jonathan Hankins departed, and he's going to complement Damon Harrison as well, because he has a little more pass rush to him, and he's really going to help those edge rushers that were inconsistent at times but have a ton of upside in New York. And at pick number 24, the Oakland Raiders going with Jarrad Davis, inside linebacker out of Florida. This seems to me to be their biggest need, is that linebacker position. Jarrad Davis just a little bit more upside than like a Raekwon McMillan, who I also considered at this pick. And his game really complements that Raiders style. He's really aggressive and a big hitter. So I think this is going to be a great scheme fit and team fit for Jarrad Davis. And at pick number 25, the Houston Texans going with Nathan Peterman, who, if you followed my Twitter, my videos, you know I'm a huge fan of Nathan Peterman. He's my favorite quarterback in this class. And this would be a great pick for the Texans because while Peterman doesn't have the upside as some of the other quarterbacks, he definitely is pretty clearly to me the most pro-ready quarterback, which Houston is ready to win now. Their defense is probably going to be the best in football next year if J.J. Watt returns healthy, and they have offensive weapons to help a guy like Peterman succeed. This could really be a great pick for the Texans, and it is a pick that I think they might be eyeing at 25. And at number 26, no surprise here, the Seattle Seahawks going with offensive line Ryan Ramczyk. Pretty good value here considering the demand for a tackle. He'll really be able to plug in wherever they need him, which is going to be a lot of different spots. And at pick number 27, the Kansas City Chiefs going with Patrick Mahomes, a quarterback out of Texas Tech. Gonna have to develop. I don't think he's ready. He forces way too many balls and played in the Big 12 against really just pee-wee defenses, but a ton of upside for Mahomes, and he should be able to sit for a year, maybe two, until the Chiefs can decide if he's their guy. And this guy could really develop into someone that's ready to take these Chiefs to the next level. They still have a ton of young talent. They are ready to win now, but are also set up well to win in the future. At pick number 28, the Cowboys have really shown to be kind of aggressive drafters recently. If you look at picks like last year going with Jalen Smith, they went with Byron Jones a few years ago. And this pick, Kevin King, the corner out of Washington, kind of similar to that Byron Jones pick. A guy that's probably skill-wise not as good as some of the other corners, but his athleticism and size is just ridiculous. One of the fastest three cones and shuttles. So really some crazy upside. He's 6'3" and a position of need for the Cowboys as well. I think Kevin King is going to be pretty high on the Cowboys list, and if he's going to fall to them here, I think they would pull the trigger pretty quickly. At 29, I have the Packers going with T.J. Watt, getting the homegrown kid and a pass rusher, definitely a huge position of need. This team does need some corners, but T.J. Watt definitely seems to fit the bill of what they're looking for, and increased pass rush will only help the corners that they do have. At pick number 30, we got the Steelers going with Garyon Conley, corner out of Ohio State. This is probably the biggest need for the Steelers. Just a solid player, great fundamentals. You do question a little bit on he was probably never matched up against the number one target for the other team just because of the players at Ohio State, but definitely a solid pick here for the Steelers. Moving on to pick number 31, the Falcons getting Charles Harris, a great pass rusher out of Missouri. Definitely a very solid pass rusher. He might project better as a number 2 pass rusher, which is actually what makes him a perfect fit here. A great value, and he's going to complement Vic Beasley very well, and they definitely need that second edge rusher. And with the last pick, the Saints making their second selection, getting Teez Tabor, corner out of Florida. I love watching Teez play. He makes a ton of huge plays, crazy instinctive, one of the most instinctive corners you'll see on tape, and they get a solid defensive player that'll plug right in after they already took offense early in this draft. So that's going to do it, everyone. Thanks for watching. Check out my Twitter at TFG_football. Give me a subscribe if you like this video. I'd love to talk to you guys about the draft coming up next week. I'm super pumped. So as always, peace out, everyone.